What we have today is one of the coolest little amps I've worked on in a long time. So cool, in fact, I bought it from the guy that I restored it for, and have just finished a series of mods based on the tdpri forums. Bendaya, I believe is how you would say it, has posted a wealth of information over there on, it's like a thesis on this amp, just about. You could probably give a college degree just for all the information over there. Anyway, that being said, this amp is, to me, one of the best little practice amps I've ever come across. And not even that. It's perfect for gigging as well, or recording. It's just a fantastic amplifier, which is why I offered to buy it, because once I got in here, I was not expecting a Fender amp from the 80s to still be using eyelet boards. So that caught my attention first of all. And then, despite the appearance of the wiring, it's, as far as the heaters and everything, it's actually quite well done, in my opinion, for the amount of space that was in here. Anyway, let's go over the restoration that was done. So, first of all, the main canister capacitor was replaced with a 20x4 multi-section can cap from CE. So what I did was jumpered together two of the sections to make it get the 40 microfarad, and then we have 2020, and so those resistors were also upgraded to 2-watt metal oxides, the power drop resistors. And then the 80 is here, and I repurposed this terminal strip for the negative side. It was already grounded directly to chassis. The middle lug is there, so that worked perfectly fine for the ground side. And then I actually added a little non-grounding terminal strip, just a little two banger, to the transformer bolt, which normally I wouldn't do, but we're not grounding to chassis anyways, and so the positive side, the B plus, is what ties to that, and it gives the capacitor a more rigid, so it's not floating. And I hated to do it, but I did use some E6000 just to reinforce it on the transformer itself. So there is no wiggle on it, and E6000 actually comes off very easy. If you want to remove it, it's one of those things that'll stay there if you need it to, but the cleanup on it's not bad compared to other things, and it's superior to hot glue as far as holding force. So we have our 80, 40, 20, 20 filtering, and then on the output tube sockets, added 470 ohm 3-watt screen resistors, and I added 10K grid stoppers. Rebuilt the power supply section with Vache PR03 3-watters on the ones that used to be 2 watts. I replaced the 47R bias resistor with a PR02 series, which makes that a 2-watt. And you can see they are well away from the caps now. There's a lot of clearance airspace off of the resistors, so the heat, yeah, that's plenty of room. It's over ½ inch away. Whereas before it was right on top of it and just cooking it. And went ahead and upgraded these 70 microfarads with 100 microfarads. Totally fine. It won't hurt anything. Redid all the cathode bypass caps. And then the 4 microfarad preamp filter cap was replaced. Instead of going back with 4.7 or 5, just bumped it up to 8, give it a little more filtering. And let's get to some of the mods I did. So this is the foot switch mod that's suggested, is to change these two 470Ks to 1 megs. And then, so the 3.3 meg, I was going to drop to 2.2 meg, but I went back with 3.3 meg, and that is actually, even in spite of its small size, is a 1 watt Dale resistor. And I did drop the 47 picofarad ceramic down to 10 picofarad. So that was one of the mods. And then upped the value of the 0.001 coupling cap to just 10 nanofarad. Then I removed the strain relief with the speaker wires that came out and connected directly to the speaker with spade connectors. I clipped it off and installed this jack. I did have to use a step drill, so this is what I use, and just it opened it up 1 notch up to 3/8, and so a 3/8 hole is what's required to get a switchcraft jack in there. And I did put a shorting jack, as you can see, so it's a tip shunt switchcraft is what that's called. So if I accidentally didn't have something plugged in, the transformer, the OT, would not see an open circuit. I am changing the speaker to an Eminence 1058 Legend. I added the 10K grid stoppers on the output tubes. Oh, that was one I missed. I put a 1 meg grid stopper on pin 11 of the Compactron, and it is actually under that heat shrink, and it is all J-hooked very nicely, in spite of how that may look. I'm extremely confident with the connection and not ever going to worry about it. Change the 47 picofarad cap on the mixing resistor to 10 picofarads. I'm going to try a 12AU7. I have a Tongues Ram ECC82, an old one that tests good that I'm going to try. And I do want to try 5751 in V1 and lower the gain and just see, because, you know, I mean, I'm only turning the lead gain to like halfway, maybe to 6 max, and it's plenty for classic heavy metal. Anyway, I changed the 470Ks. I called it a voltage divider just because that's how it appeared on the schematic, to the 1 meg resistors, which should help with the foot switch. I changed the 1 nanofarad coupling cap to a 10 nanofarad. It says it makes it less harsh on the clean channel when you use pedals, and it just makes it warmer, and I may want to use pedals. Lift the 3 nanofarad on the lead volume pot. I haven't done that. I'm not going to try that yet. I really want to hear how it sounds before I do that, and then really take note of the difference. And then I installed the speaker jack where the strain relief used to be. And I did use a shorting jack. Do one more flyover just to get us to the 10-minute mark. And funny enough, almost every component in this thing, including the canister cap, tested good. There were 2 electrolytic caps that really needed to be replaced for sure, or maybe 3. It was basically the 70s and the 4 microfarad, which bump it up to 8, no problem. Got our grid stoppers and screen resistors on the output tube sockets. Rebuilt the power supply, including that bias resistor, the 47R, and it is way away from everything now, so whatever heat those things give off are gonna drift up and not cook my caps. And here we have the rear panel of the Super Champ. You can see I've replaced the hardwired speaker wiring with a jack, conveniently labeled in the same spot. The canister cap, and like I said, I paralleled 2 sections of that for the 40 microfarad, and there's an 80 farad axial capacitor in there for the main filter. Nice pair of red base TADs. And something I wanted to point out is that the output tubes are too close together, really, for both bear traps to be on there, and one had split on the side as well, so it was removed. Let's see. So it was better to have removed it anyway, so there wasn't an interference fit. There's the 6C10 Compactron tube. And then here's the foot switch. I'm not too worried about the cosmetic look of the wiring. It's done right and it works, and it's gonna last, and that's a little more important. I did find this 4-conductor shielded cable, which is just as flexible as guitar cable, and it worked great. Hey, this is Paul at Grandma Machine Shop, Barbarian Electronics, and Moon Music Pro of Austin, Texas. Here's a quick overview of some updates to an old 80s Rivera Super Champ. Updated the canister capacitor, the multi-section cap there, with a 20 microfarad by 4 section, paralleled 2 of the sections for the 40 microfarad. New metal oxide resistors, and the 80 microfarad section is now an F&T axial cap, which is tied to terminal strips there and there. This one conveniently already went to ground. It is screwed to the chassis, but it's also soldered to the chassis factory, so that's a good ground point. Updated the power supply section and bias supply. Changed out the 680 ohm resistor with a Vishay PR03 series 3 watt, and the 390 ohms, replaced those with 3 watts, and the 47R bias resistor is now a 2 watt Vishay. You can see I've given lots of airspace to the new 100 microfarad Spragues in there. Lots of space. So before, they were kind of right on top of them and it would have been cooking the cap. So now these new Spragues should last much longer, given proper air around them. And on the output tube sockets, I put some 10K grid stoppers and some 470 ohm 3 watt screen resistors. Here I've cut the factory speaker wiring, and in that same port installed a speaker jack. I used a tip shunt shorting jack in case something's not plugged in. It gives a little bit of extra protection to the output transformer. Replaced the cathode bypass caps, all the small 25 microfarads with brand new axial electrolytics. And then bumped up the 4 microfarad preamp supply cap with an 8 microfarad, which is probably better for it anyway. These are the resistors. They were 470Ks, bumped those up to 1 meg. And then here, the factory 3.3 meg resistor had drifted up out of tolerance, and I replaced that with a Dale 1 watt resistor. And I lowered the 47 picofarad cap to a 10p. One of the recommended changes was upgrading, or changing rather, this 1 nanofarad coupling cap to a 10 nanofarad, but I didn't find that to be necessary. And then last but not least, I did build a foot switch for it. There's a foot switch wiring diagram that's available out there on the interwebs, and it is correct. It did work. But those changes recommended in the tdpri forums, to change those from 470K to 1 meg, definitely helped when you have the foot switch plugged in.